Welcome to Cultural Psychology class. This is Cindy Lahar, and I will be working with you this semester exploring the field of cultural psychology. The field is one that has grown dramatically in the last decade or two. So you can see here I've kind of clipped a number of different books. Some of them are slightly differently titled: Culture and Psychology, Multicultural Psychology, Cross-Cultural Psychology, but all in all, they explore this great realm, and I'm looking forward to working with you. This is the textbook we'll be using. This is Matsumaru and Wang's Culture and Psychology 7th edition textbook, so I hope you've had a chance to get this textbook already. The general field of cultural psychology examines, as you might imagine, psychology with a cultural focus. So just to remind you what psychologists do, psychologists seek to understand human behavior, to explain why behaviors happen, and maybe even predict human behavior. Psychologists therefore conduct research on and create theories about behavior. So examples of psychological research range from looking at how infants learn to crawl, to what the behaviors of fourth graders see as bullying, or how do parents effectively communicate with teenagers. So by learning the behavior of humans, then we can apply what we know to improve the lives of people. Um, in cultural psychology, we look at how cultural influences our behaviors, or even how our behavior might influence culture. So we'll see that there's often kind of these same two terms, cultural psychology and cross-cultural psychology, used interchangeably, and that's fine. But just to define it a little bit more, cultural psychology is that psychology that looks at the influence of culture on the behavior of individuals and the influence of individuals on the development of culture. Where cross-cultural psychology is really a research methodology that looks at both the differences and similarities between cultures. So we use cross-cultural psychology in much of our research to understand more about cultural psychology. Don't worry so much about those differences. You'll also see much of the same content reflected in multicultural psychology textbooks, although multicultural usually refers to many cultures within one. So for example, in America, we have a number of different cultures inside the USA. So, but all of these are sort of overlapping techniques and ideas. So in this lecture, I just wanted to say a quick hello and give you a couple of tips about the syllabus. I hope you've had a chance to open up and read the syllabus. It's always an important document demonstrating this, the course policies and more. I think on page 2, one thing to look at is how you will be graded in this course. And this course is graded on a point basis. So as the semester unfolds, as you complete assignments, you will earn more and more points towards your total points that you can get possibly in this course, which is 520 points. So keep that in mind as you're looking at your grades and you're seeing these numbers and grades assigned. It's really about building up points, and you'll be able to see how many points you earn along the way. So page 2 of the syllabus explains that. There's plenty of other information, course policies, and more. And of course, the last page of the course syllabus is the course schedule. And that is something I would urge everyone to print out and keep at hand. You'll see every assignment and due date listed in the right-hand column of that course schedule with a little box. You can clip it off as you go along so you don't miss any of the due dates. So the other thing I wanted to point out is just what we have available to us in Blackboard. So this is a picture of Blackboard, not a live picture, but a picture. And you can see the left-hand navigation list. So the sections of the course include a Getting Started section, which is a brief overview with a quick hello in a paper format from me. A link to the syllabus and schedule that you can always find right there, so you can quickly access that. Announcements, which you can click on the left and end up in a page that looks like this on the right, or when you enter the course, you'll also come to the announcements. Some of these announcements will be sent directly to your email, but you can always review them here as well. And that's a great place to find out just what's coming up, what any other tips and things that I might include. I'll send out reminders about assignments for you as well. Course content and course resources is the core content in the material. There are five, no, sorry, there are 5 modules in this class, and then there's some resources that are included as well. The next section down has links to the assignments in the course, some discussion forums. The 2 project assignments are inside the assignment link. Tests and exams will appear in the test and exam section. And then self-reflective activities are optional activities that I'll pop in now and then that you can use to just kind of explore some of the content. You can also always view your grades in that link. So that left-hand navigation link I just wanted to point out is pretty important. Where we're going to start out in our first module includes 2 chapters. First, in chapter 1, we'll look at some of the generalities around what is culture, what are the contents of culture, and exploring that first idea that sometimes we have culture-specific content, and sometimes some things are quite universal, and the fancy words for those are edX and emics, or edicts and emics. And then in chapter 3, we're going to jump past chapter 2. You're certainly able to read that if you'd like. It's talks about in chapter 2, they talk about research methodology. But we don't need to really explore that in detail, so I'm skipping over it for you so we can get into some of the content. Chapter 3, I think you'll find interesting, a lot on parenting and parenting styles. Culture and peers and culture and education are focused on in chapter 3. I've highlighted parenting styles in purple in this slide because we will be focusing our first discussion forum on that topic. So you might want to peek ahead to chapter 3 before you even post your first messages. And then I wanted to mention that psychology is weird. So for example, right, Walter Mischel in the 1950s and 60s had children. He was looking, of course, at self-control, but he had restricted marshmallows to determine the extent to which children have self-control. That's some pretty weird experiments. Another favorite of mine is the piano staircase project, which was accomplished by Volkswagen in 2009 to see if they could get people to choose the stairs over the escalator. In other words, people always took the escalator and no one was using those stairs. And so what they did was they painted a piano set of keys on the stairs, and lo and behold, behavior changed dramatically. And suddenly people were using the stairs left and right. So sure, psychology is a weird, and I'm proud to be part of that. But when we talk about psychology being weird in cultural psychology, we're talking about something a little bit different. And let me tell you why. Some people did some research, and they looked at all the journal articles in between 2003 and 2007 in all the top tier journals. And what they found was that 93% of the participants in those studies were Westerners. That is, either from the US or Canada or Europe, maybe Australia. 7%, only 7% were sort of Western, sort of any kind of representation. So that was one thing that we noticed. That we also noticed that most were undergraduate psychology students in universities, and that of the studies that were used in the samples, 70% use samples from only 12% of the world population. In other words, the US, Europe, and and Australia, right, make up about 12% of the world population, but then 70% of the samples were those. So we want to ask, well, humans are basically the same, so maybe that is fine. And psychology, what we're reading about in psychology journals, is fine if it's done on a Western white sample. But that's not really the case. And so Joseph Heinrich wrote a book called The Weirdest People in the World, and pointed out these sort of biases in psychology, that much of the research done has been done on people in Western, educated, industrialized, rich, and democratic nations. And the fact is, that's not all of the world. It's not representative of the world. And if you go to some other cultures, you might believe that reading a intro psych textbook from the US might not be really pertinent at all. So that's where cross-cultural and cultural psychology came to play. And this is what we mean by psychology being weird, that psychology as we know it today is based mostly on our understanding of Western educated, industrialized, rich, and democratic people. So just something to think about as we explore cultural psychology and take a new and broader perspective. So that there is lots of non-weird research. So for example, there's a video, it's about 7 minutes, and I'm not going to show it here, that is available for you in both Module 1 and also again in Module 5. And that video, this particular video shows that many people who are suffering from schizophrenia or other uncontrolled illnesses in Cambodia end up being caged or chained by their families. Not because their families are mean or want to hurt them, it's really to protect them and they don't know what else to do. It's because they don't have an understanding of that particular illness. They think perhaps maybe their family member might be possessed by demons, or they might not have the funds to help them, and so the safest thing would be to cage them or chain them up to keep them from hurting themselves or others. So this might be quite shocking to many of us, and I have great friends in Cambodia who do work with those folks. So if you watch those videos, and I urge you to, you'll see my friends Dr. Kevin Conroy and now Dr. Pun, working with these individuals and why. We'll come back to this again, but I just wanted to kind of introduce that idea that there is plenty of non-weird research out there too. So I want to take just a couple minutes to introduce myself, and tell you why I would have friends in Cambodia, for example. I started out grew up in Massachusetts and went to school in Vermont and North Carolina for my bachelor's degree, back to Massachusetts for my master's and PhD training, then over to California to do a postdoctoral research program, and eventually started my first professor gig in Canada at the University of Calgary, where I worked for a number of years. I left Canada with an awesome opportunity to go teach in Japan. And so I went to Miyazaki International College and was a professor of psychology there for about 5 years, and probably would still be there if my mother hadn't gotten ill and needed some help. So I moved back to America and moved to a small school, York County Community College in Maine, and helped them grow their social science programs. So I've had the opportunity over the years to work at a number of different schools, and I've just really been blessed. So you'll see in this, along with these other schools I've mentioned, you can see Vietnam National University and Royal University of Phnom Penh, which might not be familiar to you. That is in Cambodia, and that's because in 2004, on some government funds here in the US, I received a Fulbright Scholar program to live in Cambodia in 2004 and again in 2006, helping them design curriculum for their psychology programs, mostly doing teacher training there. If you haven't been to Cambodia, this is a picture of where it is. It's between Vietnam, Laos, and Thailand, and the capital city is Phnom Penh, where I worked. And I worked there pretty much visiting there every year until the pandemic. So I've spent a lot of time in Cambodia living and working. So this work I've done there included teacher training at the only psychology department in the country. This is from more than 10 years ago now, and some of these people are already retired, but we developed curriculum. We launched a master's program, which is the first and still only master's program in counseling in Cambodia. We launched that in July of 2008, and now I've graduated nearly 100 or more of the first counselors in the country. So that's just a little bit about me. And if you have questions about me or anything in the class, I urge you to contact me or to, there's also a discussion forum called the Cultural Site Cafe. It's a place to ask any questions about course topics, share anything. It's a great place to get started if you have any questions. So I'm going to stop there. I just wanted to really just do a quick introduction. As we will be moving into some content, I'll provide a few short lectures for you along the way, but there's lots of videos and other things along with your book and readings. And I hope you enjoy this course. I'm looking forward to working with you and helping you develop your own new globally focused cultural lens this semester.